Ronda Rousey still just doesn't get it.
The second that you're not on top, you're not shit and you never were shit.
She thinks she's entitled to this huge MMA fan base who should worship the ground she walks on, like a Chuck Liddell, GSP, or Anderson Silva. But in the most critical stages of her career, she turned a blind eye to the fans, and that resentment is still present.
Why are you so mad? That's what I would love to know. I would love to ask Ronda, why are you so mad? Why are you so mad at the world?
Whether it was being called a sore winner, a bitter loser, or having too much of an ego, the MMA world simply doesn't hold Ronda in the same regards as other legends of the sport.
When she talks about comparing the treatment of WWE legends, UFC legends, she's talking about the way the UFC treats its legends compared to how WWE treats its legends.
And almost a decade on from her very last fight in the octagon, Ronda Rousey still hates the fact that fans don't adore her, and even though she can't see it, it's almost entirely her fault. So this is the story of how the world turned on Ronda Rousey. Generally speaking, Ronda isn't one for the media. After fighting in pro wrestling, Ronda and her husband Travis Brown disappeared to their 4,000-acre farm in southern Oregon.
Our table scraps to the chicken. All right, guys. Oh, look who's...
But every now and then, she pops back up with a few things to say and just as quickly vanishes. This time, it was on the Bird Crusher podcast of all places.
You were TuneIn Television. I mean, you were the reason we bought the fight.
Oh, thanks.
Isn't that crazy though?
I mean, I'm really grateful you bought my fights.
Was it hard to wrap your head around when it was happening?
No, it felt like destiny.
And throughout the conversation, there were numerous things Ronda said that made headlines for all the wrong reasons. Firstly, one of her big problems with MMA is how, in her eyes, they don't value the legends like other sports do.
MMA fans and media are the most "what have you done for us lately" crowd of any sport. Like you look at WWE and they have such a reverence for their legends. And at MMA, it's like the second that you're not on top, you're not shit and you never were shit.
And then she went on to name individual fighters.
Chuck Liddell, when he's on top, oh my God, he's the best. The second that he loses, oh, Chuck Liddell ain't shit, he never was shit. You know? And then Rampage Jackson, oh my God, he's the next Mike Tyson, he's so great. Second he loses, oh, Rampage ain't shit, he never was shit.
Yeah.
GSP, oh, he loses, he's not shit, he never was shit.
But while all sports fans can be a little bit fickle, all of these fighters are held in pretty high regard nowadays. No MMA fan is walking around saying GSP wasn't even that good. Ronda seems to be under the impression it was her losing that made fans lose adoration for her.
The only reason that why MMA fans have their lips so firmly planted at the base of Khabib's cock is because he retired before he reached his limit. And if he kept fighting until he reached his limit, everybody would be like, oh, Khabib ain't shit, he never was shit.
And then Ronda turned her attention to the MMA media at large. She questioned why members of the media can be friendly and sing her praises 1 minute, only to question her ability in the next.
That's why I don't talk to those people anymore.
Really?
When's the last time you saw me on Arrow Alani?
I don't know if I ever have.
It's been a long time.
It's been a long time?
Yeah, because I remember that shit.
Really?
Yeah. I remember people who I thought, were my friends, and turns out that they weren't, so I just don't talk to them anymore because that helps them out.
But that is quite literally their job. Media members, journalists, and reporters all have a right to discuss the fall of a champion. And she even lumped Joe Rogan into that point, which is never going to go down well with MMA fans.
Do you know, I was just talking to Joe on the walk over, and all it takes is a text going, how long for me to train to beat Ronda? That'll never happen.
He wouldn't know. He's not an expert. He's a fan with an audience.
Ronda's big problem is her lack of awareness as to why people aren't her #1 fans. It's not because she lost 2 fights at the end of her career. It's so many other things. She refuses to speak to MMA media, yet is mad when MMA fans move on and leave her in the past. It makes no sense. But if you look throughout her career, the signs were blatantly obvious that for all her skills inside the octagon, Ronda wasn't great at managing the relationship between her and the fans all too well. We all know Ronda was miles ahead of any female fighter during her rise.
She is just absolutely collecting arms and doing things that are incredible for the sport, that are incredible for athletics, certainly men and women. She's just a phenom, worthy of all her success, but damn, she is violent.
In a time where male fighters were becoming more rounded, the women's side of the sport hadn't seen that transition yet, so Rousey's one-trick armbar supported by her Olympic bronze medal in judo was way too much to handle for her competition. It made her one of the biggest stars of all time in the sport, forced Dana White to add women's divisions to the UFC, and one of the few fighters to transcend into mainstream media. In all of the UFC's history, Ronda is a top 5 name without a doubt. There was even a time where she was the highest paid fighter on the entire roster. No one can deny that Ronda Rousey is the most important female MMA fighter and perhaps combat athlete of all time. She was armbarring challengers within seconds, and at the height of her stardom, Ronda started knocking people out cold.
I was in Brazil. I remember saying this is like the Beatles. In Brazil, she's fighting one of their own, Betty Correia. They treated her like a superstar, like a god, like John Lennon was there.
If you weren't a fan of the sport at the time, Ronda's trajectory was truly wild. But it's at this point where things got a bit too crazy. And in hindsight, the MMA world, Ronda's coaches, and Ronda herself went way too far. And the biggest place was the hypothetical fight between her and the consensus greatest boxer in the world at the time, Floyd Mayweather.
Once you get him to the ground, then that could be it.
What?
Once you get him to the ground, that could be it.
Well, I mean, I spend a lot of time there, and I doubt that he does.
But it wasn't just her saying some wild things. It sounds ridiculous looking back, but a big chunk of the MMA community genuinely believed Ronda was this mythical fighter.
She could probably beat half the men bantamweights in the UFC.
Is that true?
No, it's not. Definitely not true. I shouldn't have said it at the time. Now it's definitely not true.
Perhaps it was this, all the quick finishes or the world being at her feet. But Ronda started growing a bit of an ego, and not a nice one. After all, she was this indestructible, unstoppable fighter that no one could handle. So Ronda had become a bit of a sore winner, enjoyed mocking her opponents afterwards, and getting cocky in the build-up.
She was very confident while she was the champion, and some people would say arrogant, and because of that there's all these people that are waiting for you to fall. There's a lot of people out there that don't have much confidence, and when they see someone who's out there who's got a lot of confidence, it's very compelling, like a Floyd Mayweather or like a Conor McGregor. Their confidence is incredibly compelling. Like you want to be near them. But those people, when that person loses, they're the first ones to attack. They're like, yeah, you fucking loser. I knew you were a loser.
Let's be honest, part of Ronda being a superstar was that no-nonsense F you attitude that she had. But after a while, it got a bit much and fans started to notice. Much like the story from Miesha Tate about Paige Van Zandt's run-in with Ronda.
Ronda came up and was like, you fair weather, how dare you cross me, blah, blah, blah. She's like, cross you? What are you talking about? And she's like, you congratulated Holly Holm for beating me, so fuck you, you fucking fair weather, 115 pound. Like, it was just like, went off on Paige. And Paige came and told me, and I was like, honey, welcome to my world. She's like, oh my God. She's like, I'm glad that I saw this side of her, so I know.
It made for a super entertaining figure, but as a person, fans weren't on board. One of the biggest examples was almost always shake your opponent's hand. And Miesha, even in defeat, offered Ronda a hand, but she refused it. Even after a spectacular victory, Ronda somehow made it sour. So when the unthinkable happened and Ronda finally lost, well, the MMA world was quick to jump on it, and it shattered Ronda's world.
Tonight was one of those moments, man. These are the moments in fighting that make it so crazy and so fun. Tonight was one of those moments. Rogan was downstairs, he was saying, this is by far the biggest upset in UFC history.
At the time, Ronda losing to Holly Holm was one of the biggest upsets in UFC history, up there with the likes of GSP Matt Serra. But it wasn't just that Ronda lost that was so shocking, it was that unable to get the takedown, then brutally knocked out in front of the largest live audience in UFC history. For someone who put so much emphasis on being the best, being unbeatable, this destroyed Ronda's own perception of herself.
Honestly, like my thought, I was like in the medical room, and I was like down in the corner. I was sitting in the corner, and I was like, what am I anymore if I'm not this? And I was literally sitting there and like thinking about killing myself. And that exact second, I'm like, I'm nothing. I'm like, what do I do anymore? And no one gives a shit about me anymore without this.
And after the fight, she just disappeared. No post-fight interview, no speaking to the media in the weeks after. Ronda just vanished.
And then the next time we see her, she's getting off a plane covering her face because she felt embarrassed because she was such a gamer, such a competitive person that it crushed her. And that's okay. But guess what? UFC fans, whether she wants to believe it or not, and I didn't live it, but I can say this with the utmost certainty. They wanted to love her. They wanted to coddle her and appreciate her. She did not allow that.
And when she did finally come back to speak on the fight, the excuses were in full flow. A bad weight cut, the wrong mouthpiece, slipping and causing herself a concussion during camp. While they may all be true or they may be actual excuses, it just comes across as being salty that you lost.
I remember the narrative after the fight. It wasn't she ain't shit, she never was shit. The narrative was, you know what? We should have seen this coming. After all, Holly Holm was a Hall of Fame boxer and a pretty damn good kickboxer as well. We probably should have given her a lot more respect. But Ronda was on this trajectory. She was flying high, and she's being compared to Floyd Mayweather and on Ring magazine covers and all this stuff.
And what definitely made matters worse was that just a few months later, the UFC's other biggest star suffered a shocking upset loss himself.
It stings real bad, but this is the fight business. I've been on the end of many defeats in my life, and I've rose back, so I will not shy away from it. I will not make excuses for it. I will assess it and come back.
Yet his response was the total opposite to Ronda's, and it made a world of a difference.
Conor lost to Nate Diaz. People liked him more after the loss. The way he stood there and met with the media and took his lumps and came back stronger. She could not be more wrong about this. And she continues to go on this media tour talking shit about the MMA fans and the MMA community, when in reality, her issue is with the way the UFC treats its legends, the way the UFC treats their own.
If Ronda didn't look like a bitter loser, she absolutely did now. She of course doesn't owe the fans an explanation or has any obligation to talk to the media after the fight. But then on the same coin, she can't get mad when fans don't support her. And it's that point she doesn't quite seem to grasp. Because after taking a year off for herself, Ronda returned to the octagon, but it was under perhaps the most bizarre circumstances the UFC has ever seen.
Since that loss, we have barely seen Ronda.
It's not consistent with who you've promoted yourself to be. Is that about losing, or is that about losing the mystique and the image that you worked so hard to create?
In the year she'd been away, Ronda's bantamweight division had moved quickly. Holm lost the belt to Ronda's arch-nemesis Miesha Tate, then Miesha was destroyed in the UFC 200 main event by Amanda Nunes. It meant Ronda had a somewhat similar stylistic matchup to Holm, striker versus grappler, albeit very different strikers.
Dude, she throws bricks. I know. You know what she's like? She's like a bowling ball on the end of a rope.
Yep.
Boom! Boom!
So the big question going in, what had Ronda done to fix the shortcomings in her striking that we saw against Holly? She was still the same coach that claimed she could outbox Floyd Mayweather, so what had changed? That's what fans wanted to know. But we had no idea whatsoever, because Ronda was given serious special treatment.
What kind of sparring was she doing? One of the things I was thinking when she was hitting pads, she's standing there hitting pads with Edmund, I was like, they're standing right in front of each other. Like, she's not moving. Like, she's just hitting pads. Pop, 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 pop,
pads
pop,
are
pop.
tough to tell, though, right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes they're doing it for the camera. If the countdown crew's there, you don't want to show your new shit.
No interviews, no press conferences, no open workouts, nothing. Not even Brock Lesnar was allowed to do things like this.
She seemed so disgusted with MMA, with the community, with the fans. I'll never forget the Ronda that showed up to fight Amanda Nunes. What was it? 11 months after the Holly Holm fight, like, she was a shell of herself. Do you guys remember this? She didn't show up to the media day. She was the only she showed up to the morning weigh-in, like, backdoored it, weighed in, didn't look at any of us, and then bolted, didn't talk to anyone.
It meant all the focus was on Ronda, the comeback, and the mystery of it all. While not necessarily Ronda's fault, Amanda Nunes, the actual champion, was given no attention in the build-up.
Are you surprised that you're the betting underdog? That the odds makers here in Las Vegas have her listed as the favorite and you as champion as the underdog? Does that surprise you?
No.
No?
I really respect everything that happened right now.
Where's the respect for the champ?
I don't know. But
You feel disrespected?
No, I definitely not. Ronda Rousey was the biggest name in this video for so long. And like Dana White said, she was the one changing his mind.
So when Nunes utterly battered Ronda inside a minute and made it look like she was nowhere near the level of a UFC fighter, let alone a champion, it shocked the world. But realistically, the signs were all there.
That was the least competitive, like, main event, other than Aldo and McGregor, but that was one dynamic shot to the chin that knocked him out. Like everything about that was off.
Can you think about another main event championship level where it was that kind of big of a discrepancy? You know what I'm saying? Like, it wasn't even a fight. And, and I think leading up to it, there were some kind of red flags that you saw leading up to it, if you think back.
Simply put, the sport had just moved past her. People like Holly Holm and Amanda Nunes were the new breed of women's MMA. Elite striking, solid takedown defense, and part of MMA's biggest gyms. Whereas Ronda was still one-dimensional and came out of a gym that many fans and media members questioned. And yet, Ronda vanished from the MMA world after defeat. Ever since then, she's held a slight disdain towards the MMA world, fans, and media. She rode off into the WWE and now vanished to her farm away from the limelight. And credit to Ronda, she deserves it. One of the biggest stars in the sport, the pioneer of women in the UFC, a successful pro wrestling career, and so much more. But she needs to accept it wasn't her losing that made fans turn on her. We've seen Chuck Liddell out cold, GSP tapped to strikes, Rampage Jackson dominated. Yet fans love and respect these legends of the sport. It's because they weren't sore losers, showed up to face the media, and just cracked on with their careers. But for Ronda, that undeniable confidence that turned her into a megastar was also her undoing when she did end up losing. It shattered her self-identity in the sport, and unfortunately, she didn't handle the situation in the media all that well. And even in 2025, on the 10-year anniversary of that kick from Holly Holm, Ronda Rousey just can't seem to accept that the fans aren't fully on her side. And another fighter who can't accept reality is Aljamain Sterling. To find out where he and the fans don't get along, check out this video next. Thanks for watching.